The anxious and the avoidant. These are two people who are attracted to each other or who gravitate towards each other like moth to flame, like basically magnets. And usually these two attachment styles are, they don't even have to do anything. It's almost like a soul contract where they gravitate towards each other. There's this pull, there's this push dynamic between these two. And the thing with anxious avoidant is that anxious has this fear of abandonment and avoidant has this fear of being inadequate, not being enough. So I always wonder, like, why do the people who fear abandonment end up with the ones who fear closeness? It's not bad luck, it's like pattern. And like I feel like a lot of people do that. I don't know, even like in real life scenarios, right? Let's take an example of a cat. A cat's personality is very much like independent. Don't come to me till I come to you. And I feel like I could describe that as an avoidant personality. Luckily, my cat is not. She's an extremely cuddly cat, but cats in general, and the other person who owns the cat is the anxious in the scenario. I've always noticed like dogs, on the other hand, is anxious, and they're always dependent on their owners or their parents. Cats, on the other hand, are super independent. They are the ones who decide when they approach their own, like their parents. So that's an easy example, I feel like, because most of the people own pets, so it's the easiest example to kind of dive deeper into an anxious avoidant relationship. Basically, anxious and avoidant are two puzzle pieces that fit but painfully. I think they both come into each other's life to teach each other, to heal each other, to transform each other. And I've definitely experienced those kind of relationships in my life. Also childhood stuff too. A lot of people, I feel like, get these kind of wounds that's theirs since the very beginning. The anxious and the avoidant, they have this push-pull dynamic that's very contagious. That's very much like infectious, to be honest. And when the anxious seeks reassurance, the avoidant person feels smothered. And these are very much like patterns from their childhood. These are very much like things that they experienced in childhood. For example, maybe the anxious person had an avoidant parent, or the avoidant partner had an anxious parent, right? So, but they subconsciously seek the very same trigger that they had in their childhood because it's familiar for them. It's what they're used to, right? So what they do is they basically go for, they look to close that wound. They look to make peace with their childhood wound. That's what they're doing. They're trying to close the story or give closure to a dynamic that they never received closure as a kid or as an adult. You never know, right? When the avoidant withdraws, the anxious panics way harder. Like, so for example, when they take a step back, the avoidant person, and when they feel smothered, that's their way of like, I need space, but they don't communicate that. On the other hand, anxious person, what that triggers the panic inside of them, like, because like I said, they fear abandonment, right? The moment the avoidant person pulls away, the anxious person pushes closer, pushes for more reassurance, like communicates harder. What that does is that's just damaging the dynamic between these two, because these two are deeply wounded individuals, just in different ways. They're basically two sides of the same coin, but their experiences has been different. But they both crave the same thing, but they just don't know how to give it to the other person the way the other person wants it, and it's a cycle that goes on. Like I said, the push-pull dynamic. Psychologically, I've always felt that familiar pain feels like home, even if it hurts. There's this almost like you like the pain for some reason because it felt very familiar. Okay, this kind of pain is worth fighting for and stuff like that, right? Like some people fall into that trap too, but if both people are willing to understand their part in things, part in the whole push and pull dynamic, I feel like that it'll be a beautiful relationship. But both people have to be very self-aware. It comes with, facing your shadow self and being self-aware enough to understand that, okay, this person has the power to affect me, but still being aware enough to not let that person take that power over, So that's what both parties should be able to understand. The anxious should, take a step back and understand that this person will still be there for you without you trying harder. And the avoidant should understand that this person is not your enemy and intimacy is not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. This person might have everything that you're looking for. You just need to communicate better and not be afraid of intimacy. So there's this loop. Childhood attachment patterns can pull us into these dynamics unconsciously. Like I said, you are not consciously picking these partners. I don't know if you believe in spirituality. There's this thing called soul contract. Some people call it twin flames and all that. So every single time there's some kind of connection with somebody, right? You always look for some kind of similarities, some kind of familiarity. So no two people can get together unless, they are like very well sorted, which I feel like very few people are. They'll always go for something that's familiar, somebody who makes them feel like very similar to possibly a childhood caregiver or a childhood parent or whatever, figure, like mother, father figure. So I always feel like there's this kind of dynamic that every person is gravitated towards, whichever one that needs healing with, whichever parent figure you need healing with. I feel like that's the one you would need to close the loop with. So I feel like for an anxious person to truly become aware and, come into their healing, I feel like they need to self-soothe and notice when the fear of abandonment takes over. Because when that takes over, you don't have any control over your nervous system. Your nervous system starts panicking and you start depending on an external person to validate you. And I feel that's when the whole anxious avoidant thing comes over, right? The anxious starts depending on the avoidant to regulate them, to self-soothe them, to reassure them. And in turn, what happens is the avoidant feels smothered because people are reenacting things the way they know, The anxious acts out, the avoidant shut down. What an avoidant can do to be more aware and be there for the other person and also for themselves is lean in a little bit, lean into the vulnerable side of things instead of retreating, instead of shutting down, instead of just stonewalling. I think that's what a lot of avoidants do. And anxious on the other hand needs to self-soothe and understand that this person's not, even if this person goes away, it's nothing to do with you because you pick an avoidant, you pick an anxious person for a reason. And yeah, both of these people, I feel like, just need to be self-aware, just need to be present in the moment. Healing starts with awareness and not blame. Not blaming each of them. The anxious should not blame the avoidant person because it's not their responsibility, and the avoidant should not blame the anxious either because you both operate from very different ways of handling conflict or handling stressful situation. I think ultimately it all comes down to nervous system regulation for both of them, but it's different for both parties. That's the only thing. Finally, I feel like, I don't want to go too deeper into this because I feel like every single person should look into their attachment style if possible in every kind of relationship because I feel it plays a huge role in how you interact with people, how you interact with your surroundings, how you interact in different kinds of relationships that you have. It takes time, right? I think it comes and goes. A secure person can turn anxious and an avoidant person can turn anxious too. It depends upon the dynamic. Finally, these patterns don't define us. It can be broken. These patterns just reveal where the healing needs to happen. Sometimes we run away, right? I myself, I'm actually guilty of doing that. We run away when these things come up and we try to blame external circumstances. When we face our core wounds, these triggers, these mirrors that's happening through other people or circumstances, love no longer feels like chasing or running. Feels like home in a good way. Because, you associate home with stability, happiness and calmness, right? The moment you face your shadows, the moment you face your core wounds. Like I said, like love no longer feels like chasing or running. It's just a balance of things. And finally, if you want to go deeper into turning these wounds into growth, like check out my workbook. It's called The Alchemist Within. It's designed to help you transmute pain into strength. It'll be very essential for anybody who's an anxious attachment or an avoidant attachment. It mixes both of these personalities. So you can sit with it can be a very beginner's guide to healing. And I've made it in a way that you can pay whatever you want. You don't have to, if it's too much, too expensive for you, like you can pay whatever you want and you can buy a copy of it. And finally, thanks for tuning into, this healing journey with me. And thanks for subscribing to my channel, whoever is listening to this. And if you feel like anyone else could relate to this, feel free to share this episode with them as well. And keep showing up, and I'll meet you there.